Hey, can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
You're
Want to make sure I
welcome.
was at the right place.
Look, I'm so sorry I had you waiting. Things ran behind. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. That's okay, Bianca. I just want to make sure I'm in the meeting. That's
Yes.
that's most important. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Johnson, can you hear us now?
I can hear you. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
Okay. You guys ready to begin? Town clerk, ready to go? Town manager? Yep. Okay. Good evening. I call this Morrisville Town Council work session for June 6, 2024 to order. Welcome, everyone. We have two items on this evening's agenda: Duke Energy Transmission Corridor Study, followed by a Town Council Roundtable. Michelle Stiegel, our Planning Director, will start our first item.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to keep this somewhat informal. This is a continuation of your discussion at the May 28th work session related to the corridor study that Duke Energy is performing. At that meeting, we heard some comments about trying to keep the corridor away from major town facilities, really looking at the map that things west of the proposed substation site in a lot of areas were problematic, so looking more to the east of that proposed site along Slater, I-40, Airport Boulevard. So we have taken the feedback that we got from council at the May 28th meeting and drafted a draft letter to be shared with Duke Energy. Again, they are in the middle of their public comment period for the transmission corridor study, and that public comment period ends on June 10th. So this is an opportunity for the town to weigh in and voice opinions on behalf of the town in relation to that study. I want to thank council for the little bit of extra time to pull a letter together that was just emailed to you earlier today, but I do want to walk through it with all of you since really you've just received it not that long ago. Yes, we have Council Member Liz Johnson remote. Do we also have other council members remote? Okay, thank you. Okay, so just to walk through the letter with you, begin by thanking Duke Energy for the opportunity to comment, for their efforts to ensure that we are providing reliable energy to our growing town, but also noting that as a built-out community that there are some inherent challenges in installing a new transmission corridor through the town. Then go on to talk about preferring those options that are west of the proposed substation site. So there's specific note about Church Street Park, the importance of the park to the community and the ongoing investments being made there. There's also reference to the high school planned on Paramount Parkway and the challenges that are already being experienced with that site and the impact additional right-of-way acquisition in that area could potentially have. Then go on to talk about TOD development, provide a little bit of the history there, how important that project is to the town, mention of the flyover that's slated to begin in 2025, and wanting to keep the corridor away from the TOD and away from the new residential that is planned in TOD as well. Finally, mentioning NC 54 as a major gateway first impression to the town and the importance of that first image and impression as you're driving into town. The plans to widen NC 54 beginning in the summer of 2025 and how that project will already wipe out some landscape buffers. So any corridor lines constructed in that area would be in parking lots and could potentially interfere with buildings as well. Then mention that for all those reasons, we are encouraging options east of the substation site, most notably along Airport Boulevard, Slater Road, and I-40. Also noting that in regard to I-40, if that were selected as an option, that we would want to or encourage Duke Energy to coordinate with the town and with Campo due to the plans for the Triangle Bikeway in that area. With your Stirrup Iron Creek Trail feasibility study, also noting that there could be some potential conflicts, particularly in the Airport Boulevard, Sorrel Grove Church Road area that we would want to look at. Then finally, encouraging use of the monopole as the preferred pole style, regardless of if a future transmission route is in a right-of-way or on private property. So that is just an overview of the letter. Again, understand if council needs a little time to read through it, but I would just want to open it up for comments, feedback. Our goal is to finalize something to send out by the end of the public comment period on June 10th.
Okay, Vicky Scroggins Johnson, followed by Councilmember Rabati. Councilmember Scroggins Johnson.
Okay. I am very impressed with how comprehensive this draft is. I see several of our comments from our initial discussion as a council that we were including. Yes, my microphone is on. And I really like the way that we list the rationale behind why this is a bad routing. We are urbanized, and anything that goes inside the heart of the town is going to be destructive to many of our current plans that we have. As we become even more urbanized, we have to go along the perimeter in order to allow for the best outcome for both the energy needed as well as the current plans we have for the town. So thank you so much. I don't have any changes. I did read it before I came briefly, but the way you explained it, I'm very impressed. Thank you.
Councilmember Rabati, followed by Mayor Pro Tem Garamella, please.
I agree with Councilmember Scroggins Johnson that this is very comprehensive, and I think most of the points are very compelling. I don't find it particularly compelling that the first impression of Morrisville presented to motorists traveling from Durham is likely to be impacted. I think that the key in that situation, the NC 54 situation, is that NCDOT has plans to widen the road. So what I would do is I would take out, and the first impression of Morrisville presented to motorists traveling from Durham. I mean, this is my opinion. I would just take that out, and I would leave it as, we sort of get there anyway when we say detract from the image of, should it be detract from the image of the town at the end of that paragraph?
Yes.
Okay. I think we sort of get there when we say detract from the image of the town, so I would take that out. But everything else, yeah, I think is great.
Councilmember Garamella, please. Mayor Pro Tem Garamella.
Yeah, I think the letter is very well written, but I wanted to ask about what are their criteria in determining, this is a study they did, but they may have a certain formula because they may have to find the closest path or, path which is less expensive and all those criteria, right? So without going much into details, is there any way we could do some analysis to make saying our case stronger, saying if we have to go through all these things, then the expense and the ambience is a key critical because you're having a pharmaceutical or a biopharma company and then running a monopole next to it, deters the property value as a whole, especially in the parameter and paramount area. So, because a letter is compelling, but at the same time, I don't want them to come back. According to Rule 6.7.4, we have to find the least resistance kind of a path, and so that it can't be expensive to the stakeholders or whatever. How do we ensure that we are maneuvering to those logic and so that we don't give them any chance to go about?
Duke Energy does not have a set formula. So this is one of the things that we talked to them about at the open house. All of the purple lines on the map are potential routing options that they're studying. So they're doing a comprehensive study because they realize this is a built-out community. They realize that there are pros and cons of different options and routes. That being said, do think you can assume that cost is going to be one of those factors. And a lot of those routes that go from the proposed substation site west to the red line that we're trying to get to are a lot shorter. That's not to say Duke Energy during their public open house specifically said this is not going to be based on cost, but that will obviously be one factor.
And is the Slater Road the closest way to do it, or like easiest access, like in right of way? Because other right of ways are harder to get. It will take a longer time to. So I just want them to be encouraged, saying that hey, this is more eminent domains in this area compared to that area could be easy, but I don't like.
You are looking at whatever route you go with. There is going to be right-of-way acquisition. There's going to be private property easement acquisition. And each route has its own unique challenges.
Okay, so I think we'll go with that particular route which is less impact to the town, and keep the image of it, and also get the power much needed for our progress. Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson, please.
Michelle, thank you. I'm going to echo the comments already said about how well written the letter is. So thank you for that. Thank you for bringing up the Triangle Bikeway. I think that's important. So I appreciate that comment in there. The last sentence is fabulous. The town welcomes the opportunity to work collaboratively with Duke Energy to progress the project in a way that minimizes the impacts to the community and residents. So thank you for that, and ending on that note. And then as far as Councilmember Robati's comments about removing that first impression end of that sentence, either way is fine with me. It doesn't matter to me so much, but I'm fine if we want to remove that. I like the beginning of that sentence, though, that it's a major gateway to the town. And I agree with Councilmember Rabati that the rest of the sentence kind of gets us to what we want to say. So I'm fine if we need to eliminate that part of the sentence. So thank you very much.
Okay, my turn. I would start where she just finished, in that I also like NC 54 as a major gateway, and then maybe take that second half of that first sentence and put it down towards the bottom. So we're leading with NCDOT has plans to widen the road, because I agree completely that that's really the stronger argument, is that NCDOT is going to widen it, and if they add another 50 feet, it's going to make that road really difficult to do much development, and it's going to get in NCDOT's way as well. So that could be a possible compromise, to keep all the ideas in there, but bring the first impression part down to the bottom, and just sort of work that last bit of that last sentence. Because I think that is also important. And I really appreciate how staff first brought this item to us, saying that different municipalities in these cases brought forth why it matters to them. And you guys have really shown in these 4 points why it matters to us, and made a strong case for each. So I think each of these reasons is strong enough on its own, but all 4 of these together hopefully will help Duke decide to go away from our development to the west and bring it to the east. Once again, the Triangle Bikeway is brilliant to make sure that that's taken under consideration as well, because that's really important for the future of our region. So everyone had a chance to say once. So what I hear is we're all generally good with the letter. If we could all just sort of share our thoughts with number 4 real quick, and make sure that we have consensus around that. I think staff probably has what they need. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, I'm just looking at the order of the bullet points. Is there anything that, like, for example, if NCDOT is planning to widen the meat of my question is there any other agency or governing body that would supersede Duke Energy and be able, and like, so for example, like they're going to widen 54, the DOT is going to widen 54. Could they, if for some reason the line went down 54, could they make Duke Energy move it? Or is it just once it's there, it's there?
So I'm going to try and answer the question, but if I don't answer it, just let me know. So the plans for the NC 54 widening are essentially done. All the right-of-way acquisition is complete. So with the widening plans, the utility poles that are there now get pushed back further at the edge of the new road. So that project is designed, going to happen, moving forward with construction starting next summer. You're looking at this project trailing behind that. So Duke Energy would have to acquire additional right-of-way beyond what will be the new right-of-way line and replace the poles that are there now with new transmission poles.
Okay, so NCDOT already has site control for the NC 54 project.
They do.
And this would require Duke Energy to come in and get an additional right away. That being the case, I might move that one up front because it seems to me that that's most likely to have a serious economic effect on the project. And then I probably would go transit-oriented development and then Church Street Park and the high school. Just because I would go in order of projects of our plans that are most likely to have an impact on their plans.
Okay. Any other comments on the order?
Not on the order, but I think just follow up. I had the same question, is more about, in my plain language, who's the big daddy in the room? Like, is it, I know NC Rail is the top of the priority because when they say something, everyone has to fall in flank, So in that order, how does Duke Energy fall? Like, is it NC Rail first, and then DOT, and then the Duke Energy? How does the priority order fall in play?
If we're talking about NC 54 or McCrimmon, those widening projects, it's just NCDOT is already there because those plans are already done and the right-of-way is already there. I don't know that one entity really has more authority than the other, but Duke would be coming on the back end. And they both have right-of-way acquisition, easement acquisition that they need to do as part of their projects.
So, a scenario where Duke wants to do a right-of-way acquisition or eminent domain on right-of-way of NCDOT. We are out of the play, but like they both are competing, then who would come out saying we have higher authority than the other one? That's where because that will determine many of these issues that you're talking about. Because NC Rail, if you say I want 50 feet there, they said nope, that doesn't work, so they have to go to the other side. So, like, I know Frank is not there.
Oh yeah, I was just going to look over to see if Frank was there because you're talking about two state agencies, NCDOT
Exactly.
and Duke Energy, who is under the Utilities
and
Commission.
Rail,
I don't know if Deputy Manager Rodriguez knows, but I do not have an answer for you right now.
Something I would be interested to know, like when all three are competing, like there's always a saying, if four entities are in front of a stop sign, the first one that will go is a school bus, and then the post office, and then the president's car. That comes as a priority. So I just wanted to know how this plays in. So that's all.
Councilmember Scroggins Johnson, please.
Thank you. So I'm also curious as to, the pecking order, if you will. I think the railroad is national, and probably has the most influence of anything, and then state agencies, and it might be a tie between the roads and the power,
It's-
and then the town. I mean, I'm
It-
pretty
it
sure
is-
the town is not
Yeah,
in the top three.
It's also based, what I heard is who has the oldest charter. So NC Rail has older charter than the state of North Carolina, and then the town. So that, I know that hierarchy is there, but I don't know where Duke Energy as a utility is mandatory too. That has to be given to whoever has.
So despite the pecking order and the fact that North Carolina was one of the original 13 colonies, um, it's also about committed cost. So some of these projects have been funded. The flyover, what is the status of the flyover? Has that had a committed budget? You know, the TOD still is conceptual, so it probably has less, 100%. But that flyover definitely has a lot more investment right now, the Triangle Bikeway. So I would think that there would be some nuances about committed funds and rework and total cost. So total cost is not only acquiring the right of way, but if you have to condemn something and do, there's additional cost and rework to multiple agencies when they do that. And that's a total opportunity cost that we might need to do a little bit of math on some of these options. I looked at number 4, and I wanted to weigh in on that. NC 54 is a major gateway to the town and the first impression of Morrisville. We can stop there, in my opinion. We don't need to say presented to motorists traveling from Durham. I think that alone, and then the NCD has plans to widen. It could be the first one. I think if you look at investment, it could be the TOD second or third, because we do have investment and monies tied up also in Church Street Park. So there's a lot of commitment there. There's contracts there. There's a lot of traction there. So the first one could be the NC 54, but the second or third, I'm flexible on that. It depends on what the committed funds are and what the status of the projects are.
Does staff have what they need? If we're all okay with changing the order, but 54 first?
Yes, I think we're good. And if we're wrapping up, I would just remind the council, or if you weren't aware, the project website, there's a link to that in your briefing. There is also a public comment form on there that any one of you could fill out as individuals as well. So I would encourage you to do that in addition to the letter from the group.
Fill that form up.
Yes, public comments open until June 10th, so I think the more public feedback, the better.
That would be nice.
Okay, so
We can
I was
push
going
that.
to echo that if we can ask if social media can sort of put a couple of things out before the 10th about that, maybe note our letter, encourage residents if they want to grab any of those thoughts and include it in their own words. That could be positive.
And
And Councilmember Johnson has something she'd like to add, please? Councilmember Johnson?
So I just put a comment in chat. I'm fine with rearranging the order in the letter. I just want to make sure I weighed in on that as well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your participation. You had more?
Is this online somewhere that people could go and look at it? Would you mind sending out the link to this into the public comment website?
Yeah,
Nope,
yes,
that's
absolutely.
it for me.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Liz. Okay.
And I think there might be a typo in the letter.
Top bottom what?
I think it says TO space W.
Yeah, I think we're getting that changed to the new URL as well. So we're getting there. Okay. Cool.
All right,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
We've beaten this to death.
We will move on to item number 2B, which is Town Council Roundtable. This will be facilitated by Giselle Rodriguez, our Deputy Town Manager.
Thank you. You have, there was 2 items that were submitted for discussion today. Those have been provided with the agenda. Both items were presented by Mayor Colley. So Mayor Colley, if you would like to present your items, we'll go through those. And then after we do that, we can go over the update of the previously presented items.
So we'll start in order as shown. On nonprofit policy for Morrisville. So this is something we've actually discussed a little bit in the past. In speaking to staff, they haven't been given clear direction. So what I was hoping that the council would support is just asking staff to take a look at nearby towns and their nonprofit policies and perhaps crafting something that might be appropriate here in Morrisville. Not saying that we're funding anything right now, just bring it back to us so that we could see if we'd be interested in, like Cary and Apex, who support nonprofit organizations for the good of the community with any funds. So it's a pretty straightforward, simple ask. Just look to see if a policy would be appropriate for Morrisville, what it would look like for us, and maybe a recommendation about a funding level that might be appropriate. Those other towns, I believe, do per capita, so 1 per resident. So for us, that would be $32,000 per year, approximately. Would anyone like to share any thoughts? I see these 2 still up from before. Councilmember Rabadi, followed by Mayor Pro Tem Garamilla.
I don't think that we can give to nonprofits without a policy. I mean, we did discuss this at the time when we talked about the Veterans Memorial. So I would be in support. We talked about it when we talked about the Veterans Memorial, and I don't think we should give outside of having a policy. So I would be in support.
Okay. Councilmember Johnson, please.
So I would agree with that. We should not be giving outside of a policy. I'm just a little sensitive right now. We have citizens coming to us asking that we adjust our budget. They're not happy with the budget as it exists now, and they're asking us to decrease what we're funding in the budget. And now this item would be to add additional funding. So I'm not comfortable moving forward with this at all. And I do believe, we should not be funding nonprofits without a policy, but I'm not in favor of adding more funding to our budget at this point. And having said all that, I do want to say, I work with several nonprofits. I give personally to many nonprofits. They do a fabulous job. I just don't think, I think this is a little insensitive at this time right now.
So to clarify, this is not asking for budgeting, it's asking for the possible creation of a policy which would allow it. And in my opinion, the idea of people wanting to have a little bit more support and being able to stay in the town, that was the large concern voiced by some about the tax rate. This would provide organizations the ability to help those who are on the margins to actually stay in the town. So this actually addresses their needs as a possible way. So I just want to share those thoughts. Councilmember Scroggins Johnson.
No, I'm sorry. I have another comment then.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Debated what I said, so I need to respond.
Please do.
The citizens that are coming forward right now are asking for relief for each and every one of them themselves. So I honestly think this would not fall into helping them. I think what they're asking for is relief on the tax rate that we will be adopting to help them, not to fund a nonprofit. So, and I will add this, TJ, you've said you don't want to include funding, and then you've said you want to include funding. So clearly, if we're going to have a policy to fund nonprofits, that means we've got to find funding somewhere. So, be straight that, you're talking about adding additional funding opportunity in the budget. Again, I just think this is bad timing.
Thank you for sharing that perspective. Councilmember Scroggins Johnson.
So
I think we have mechanisms today to help certain populations, with the nonprofit landscape that we have today. The town adding money towards a subset of nonprofits is not gonna, it's not appropriate that we pick and choose and show favoritism to some nonprofits and others not. I'm worried that we're collecting taxes from businesses and residents of Morrisville. And if we give money to nonprofits that have broader scopes than Morrisville, you can say all you want that you want the money to go to Morrisville, but by their own charters, they cannot specifically only give the money back to Morrisville. Yes, Habitat for Humanity is an example. We've been sitting here for hours and they said they cannot guarantee that Morrisville residents or staff will be recipients of affordable housing. So that's just one example. I could give you 50 more if we had time tonight. I don't believe that we should be giving money to specific nonprofits. I think the town should be investing in amenities and services for the entire town. And it's not the right time to be spending more money specifically targeting some individuals. The affordable housing issue that we are tackling will help all the residents because of the diversity, but more specifically, it will create Morrisville residents. And that's the difference between the nonprofit that you're doing and affordable housing, which is kind of a mix. So I don't support this at this time. I'm very sensitive to the budget issues that we're facing, and to say that once we have a policy, now we're going to fund it. I know that's the next step, and we just need to kind of reflect on what's most important to the entire town, and then maybe this policy discussion could happen at a future date.
Thank you.
Yeah. Fundamentally, I'm trying to understand the request is if someone has issues paying their taxes, will this money be used towards that?
No.
No, exactly right. So
Dorcas, for example, can help people with utilities and things like this. They vet all their people. For example, there's other things like Kieran who do good work. Habitat for Humanity, as was noted, is unable to differentiate. So part of our policy might be that staff would only determine which nonprofits who apply, only ones that who can say that they support Morrisville residents would be allowed to receive these monies. So there's ways to address certain of these issues, and Apex and Cary have already done so, and they have policies in place. So the ask is simply to see how they're doing it, whether or not that would be appropriate for us, not to fund anything at this time. As was noted, there's a lot of discussion about funding and whether or not now is a good time. Now might not be a good time, but having a policy in place means that next January or February might be a good time. So it's just having this essentially a shovel-ready policy in case we ever wish to provide a little bit more of a support network for our residents, in addition to what Wake County is already doing through supporting the nonprofits that are already helping our residents.
So I get it. So every organization has their own set criteria. Dorcas could say might be focusing on 80% AMI, suppose. And other people like Kieran is particular set of domestic violence, So the different criteria, Morrisville Community Fund could be focusing very wholly to, I don't know, Liz, you may correct me, but what is in Morrisville, nonprofits. So I personally feel like, there's always all the nonprofits are not free. When I say American Red Cross, out of $1, what is it, 55 cents goes to their, operations, and only 55 cents or 45 cents goes to the real end person. So we don't know how much of all these things will play and how much really goes into the hands of the needy, because once we hand off, we don't have no control on how they do it, and rightfully so. That's not our role to play. We are putting $75,000 towards affordable housing rental assistance. That is the first step where we are going to administer it through Wake County. I don't know, whoever the agency is, it's going directly from the town. So that gives me a lot of relief, saying that we as a town are taking that and doing it. We could give 75,000 to Habitat for Humanity or some other agency, and I'm sure not every penny of that 75 might be 30, 40 overhead costs will be gone into that, because it takes it people. The concept of nonprofit is pretty interesting because all the hospitals here are nonprofit uh, per se, but the expenses of how much it is, we know how many bills we pay. So it's a loose kind of area where we are a small town. We don't have that much of money compared to big towns. And even if we allocate, it is sets a dangerous precedence. I'll tell you why. Because HumSup comes to me and says, "Hey, does town have money for our events?" And like some other organization will come and say, "Hey, can you sponsor us?" Right? So then they expect a council member to lobby for their nonprofit, and then we are pitching each other against these things. And are we really into that space is the question. We are not like R.J. Reynolds, foundation that has zillion monies that they do a vetting process and they give money, So we are a small town, and if we are talking small amounts, the needs are a lot. We won't be able to satisfy everyone. Like the small business loans, those are micro loans, which are less than 500 or 1,000 or something. We do all the paperwork and everything. How much are we really helping? So it's, for me at this time, I feel like it is not the right time where, even if we do it, we will not serve justice to the people, because it'll be a pitching thing. Like I said, oh, I'll get, BAPS will say, we want some. HSNC will say, we want some. Dorcas will say, we want to apply. Who gets into that? We are the people who will basically vote on it, and then it'll cause all kinds of issues. So I just don't want to get into that race, because it'll just we'll pick our own favorites there. So that's my fear, because at the end of the day, the voting is us. As we appoint our board committee members, and Giselle, correct me if I'm wrong, even if we go that policy or anything, it will be coming to us as to these are the pros and cons of each one and which one you want to pick. So, and then if I'm picking one or something else likes others, so it sets a wrong precedence to me. That's my gut feeling.
To kind of address that, it'd be my understanding that you set a policy, staff determines who are the recipients, and then that's that. You can allocate a fund. We could set up the policy any way we want to protect ourselves from being pitted against different organizations. So I think that's a positive, but I understand you're not supportive of this idea at this time to just have staff look into the policy. So there's not support for it at this time. Councilmember Scroggins-Johnson, did you have another follow-up? No, I just... Okay. Not at all. So I appreciate this was a good discussion. It sounds like there might be openness to it at a future time. Okay. So sometime perhaps not budget season, this would be more amenable to this group. So I appreciate that. I'll move on to the second item with council's permission. This is tennis court backboard. And just to start off, I brought this up in the past. Staff looked at it, and it's my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that a big reason that they thought that this would not be a good idea is because we have a limited number of tennis courts already. And it was their impression that if someone's on the backboard, that tennis court would be out of use. It's my understanding as a tennis player who's played for a long time, and I can't speak for any other council members, but in general, and we could put up a sign to this effect, if there are people waiting to use a tennis court, the backboard is not to be used at that time. It's very simple. People know. It's kind of like when you put up a sign saying after 1 hour, if people are waiting, please vacate the court. The same thing with the backboard. Wherever a backboard is, if someone's playing on it, if two people want to use the court, they take precedence, and that's understood in the tennis community in general. So for that reason, I think it's really good and helps the community to have at least one backboard on one of our many court amenities, because it gives people the opportunity to practice. I know I did a lot of that growing up. It's good for kids, and it makes it easier to learn the sport. So I would just ask if the council would be willing to ask staff to take another look at it, and given the fact that the court would be used for people playing rather than the backboard, how much it would cost to put a backboard where they suggest it would be. Not saying that we're going to put up a backboard, just ask staff where would be the best place, how much it would cost, and then we could decide as a group whether or not that's something we want to move forward with. And I think that we'd probably get some good input from our community during that process, which would help us to know whether or not this is an amenity that is worthwhile. And I know it's budget season still, so this might be something we might contemplate installing in the spring if we choose to do it, but it would be good to have the work done now. Would anyone like to weigh in on this item? Or would staff like to respond to my first intro?
If I may.
Yes, please.
If I may. So the last time we reported on this item was on February 2024, so just last February, and the response from staff was the staff had concerns about reducing the usage of our existing courts that are in heavy use to accommodate this request, and that staff was not supportive of installing that backboard back wall at this time. Staff did also indicate that if there was a need for this, then it will potentially need to be considered as we build newer amenities. You build them with that in mind instead of reducing the use of the courts that we currently have. So that's what was last reported last February. So just wanted to share that update so that everyone is aware. I also shared with Assistant Manager Letney that this was on the roundtable in case staff had any additional input. Before we turn it around, I wanted to give him the opportunity in case he has anything else, but staff did express concerns about the usage.
Yes, thank you. That's still current. Staff is concerned from our Parks and Rec department about any way that would limit use of the already heavily used tennis courts. They support adding a backboard if it was an amenity that could be used, but it would be best placed in a new place where we could design it, plan for it up front, and it could be used for that purpose rather than partially for that purpose and partially for regular use. So that was the most recent comment regarding this in the past month or so.
So would it be correct to say that that would be dedicating the space for half a tennis court somewhere new? Would that be the answer? So it wouldn't be a dual use, it would be a single use just for the backboard.
It was more related to adding it in a new facility, but studying what's the best way to do that. We don't have experience with that in our park system. Some of our parks professionals have experience with that amenity in other systems, and they felt that studying it as part of a new amenity and building it into that rather than trying to retrofit something that we have now would be a better way to go.
Thank you. Councilmember Scroggins Johnson, followed by Councilmember Johnson, please.
Thank you. First of all, I appreciate staff giving the feedback tonight. I didn't realize it was only February when we had brought it up before. I support staff's recommendation about a new facility because it does make sense. I know that along with tennis, pickleball is very, very popular, and there's a wait list, for the courts very often, as well as there are for tennis. If we design something for practice, which is what you're proposing, I would hope that we not only have that practice that was available to tennis, but it also maybe for pickleball. Maybe there's different lines you would have to draw if the person was a pickleball player, and then there was a line like if you were practicing for tennis, so it could be used by either sport with the same kind of thing. But again, it has to be designed. It can't take away from existing, but maybe it's for future. So,
Councilmember Johnson, please.
Thank you. I'm going to just ditto Councilmember Scroggins Johnson. I agree with everything she just said. And thank you, staff, for weighing in. I think the way forward, as you've described, looking at it in new facilities and how to incorporate it from the beginning of those new facilities is the right way to go. So I appreciate that. I don't think we need to move forward with this because I think staff already has it on their work plan, and they've got it on their radar. So thank you.
Is it on staff's work plan that this amenity be in the future tennis courts?
I think from what's been shared is that if we open a future tennis court, or perhaps even if we renovate one, we would consider this as an option at that new site or at a renovation site.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Would anyone else like to weigh in on this? Okay, thank you very much. Good discussion. So that will not be moving forward for staff. And those were the items. Did anyone else have anything else they wanted to share? Okay. Anything for the good of the order? Good of the order, Town Manager? Okay.
I would add that the second attachment to this agenda item is the summary of the items that were presented, not only at the last roundtable, but the previous ones that may have received an update. While the updates are not noted in green, I just wanted to do a quick check if there is any questions about any of those updates.
Could you put those up?
Just before we go, I was just thinking, in the south lot, what is the purpose of this multi-purpose thing? We don't have any programming for that, or do we? I don't know the answer to that.
So the multipurpose court is what you're referring to. I think the intention is, and I can ask Assistant Manager Litney in case you have any additional insight, but the original intent is to allow it to be a court that can be used for multiple uses. It can also allow programming that could be seasonal. But I will allow him to provide any additional insights in case you have anything related to programming of the multi-use court at the southern lot.
Yes, thank you. So at this time, our Parks and Recreation Department is not planning on programming for that. What they are planning is having an amenity available if there were third parties that wanted to use it for their programming, where we could either partner or they could rent it or something along those lines. And it would be a recreational item to be used for pickup play or things along those lines. Our current basketball program is an indoor program, and that's what we staff and provide by the town. We don't have the staff or what we see the interest at this point, or the ability to stand up a new program using outside courts in light of what we have in the indoor courts.
No, the reason I was asking, will that multi-purpose be used as the boards there? Because it's concrete.
As the what?
As the backboards.
Could it have a tennis backboard as part of it?
Because it could be used for pickleball, it could be used for anything, because it's not taking away, since there's no programming in play, people could hit it, and then if someone comes, then they will use for a different purpose. It's like a multi-use anyone, and it's not dedicated to the tennis. So that could solve it if that's the reason. I don't know what the main purpose of that is. It could be many ways.
Town Manager?
So I would say, one, I would have a little concern just distance-wise. I think people that want to use the tennis wall probably would see that at the tennis courts. I think we'd also would need to check and see what the final markings are going to look like on there,
Okay,
how many
that's-
sports are attempted to use. I don't want to limit how that court might be used. I don't know if the wall fits there, doesn't fit there. And the other thing is, at this point, very, very hesitant to make any changes to that project. Because we need to get that project completed. And as soon as we make it, not to say we can't add it after, but I would not want to add it as part of that project because we're already, working to catch up on that. And change orders are just going to slow that process down right now.
That's fine. I was just, because I don't know the programming of what it is. That's the reason I came and asked first what it is before the possibility.
So I'd ask staff, in regards to that sport court in the southern lot, what are the plans for the markings? Will it have 2 basketball hoops? Will it also have a volleyball net? Anything like that? So that can be offline if you just want to send that to us. Or
Yeah, I think they're working on that now. I don't anticipate it being marked for basketball. There's going to be 2 basketball courts in the southern lot, but there will be other sports.
yeah, so I'd just be interested in what that vision is for that sport court, because that'd be great. Could you bring up the one that has the summary of the recent ones, in case anyone has any questions about any of the items in green, which are the recent updates? Okay, there we go. So,
It's really small.
so the updates are on the far right. Could you move over to the far right? That's where the updates are. Mm-hmm.
They have started that. They started some of that social media campaign. Let me scroll over to the other side. Move to the next page. Any questions on any of those items?
Yep.
Yeah, all of these were presented at the last meeting. Your next roundtable will be at the work session in August. So the link remains open. So if you have any roundtable items that you would like to submit, you can submit them at any time. We do provide you a deadline, a cutoff, so that it gives us the time to compile the items to be able to prepare the agenda package to bring it to you. But you can submit your items at any time. And we will let you know when that deadline will be coming up in August. More than likely will be around the August 21st, so that we have ample time to do that.
Okay. Excellent.
Any
This-
questions?
Don't think so. This has been a really good meeting. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion from Councilmember Rabadi, second by Councilmember Scroggins Johnson. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that carries unanimously 4-0. It is 6:58. We are adjourned. Thank you all.